offering of worship. Come on, before we take the offering, I want to read some to you. And then while taking the offering, can you sing, take my silver and my gold, yeah? That's what we'll do. Come on. You see, I'm taking the offering from this amazing verse when Jesus comes to his disciples, and he gives them not the Great Commission, but this is called the Limited Commission. In Matthew 10, it's the Limited Commission. In Matthew 28, it is the Great Commission. There are two commissions. People get confused. And in the Limited Commission, he says something that I think we can draw from even for us now. And the Limited Commission was given to his disciples. Listen carefully to Matthew chapter 10, verse 5. These 12 Jesus sent out and commanded them, saying, okay, who is this for? The 12. You see there? He says, do not go into the way of the Gentiles. Do not enter the city of the Samaritans, but go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So he's literally saying, do not go. Do not do the Great Commission to these guys. Do not go to the lost sheep. Go only to the Jews and the Israelis. Okay, this is what you call a limited commission. But I want you to see that what was given to them was extremely supernatural. Not to say that that's not given to us. That's why I said we can draw from it, okay? And then he tells them this, as you go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand, because still Jesus had not died, and so the power of the cross hadn't broken out, okay? But he says, tell them it's about to come. The kingdom is about to be here, okay? Tell them the kingdom of heaven is at hand. You see it there? Now this is interesting. Provide neither gold nor silver nor copper in your money belts, nor bag for your journey, nor 2 tunics, nor sandals, nor staffs. For a worker is worthy of his food. This was so mind-blowing. Like, that is not your commission. That's not what has been told for you. Okay? You can have the money. You can have the good, nice vehicles. You can have your nice houses and your nice cars. Okay? But this, what was given to disciples, was extremely difficult. People misunderstand. It's called a limited commission. Provide neither gold nor silver, no copper in your money belts, no bag for your journey, no clothes. Can you believe that, Ezra? No clothes, no sandals, no staffs. Because they had to depend completely on him. And these are the ones that went out and spread the gospel. They were called the apostles. Their lives were amazing. They went out, they spread the gospel. They spoke about him. And God expected for them to have a supernatural provision. Now that same provision, the same God, is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Today, he doesn't tell you not to have your money. He doesn't say, keep all your silver and gold and throw it away. He doesn't say that. He gives you the power to have wealth, the power to make wealth. But I want you to see the apostles' heart, the ones who preach this gospel. They had to depend on him every day. For them, daily bread was a real thing. For them to actually say yes to Jesus meant that they can't even take a rupee or $1 to buy themselves something. They have to believe that God, who is good, will deliver that unto them. That's the heart of a disciple. Those were the hearts of the apostles. And so I want you to think about it. When you look at your money, your power, your strength, everything that you have today, and know that it is still that supernatural God that works. We don't see it. They saw it in such a far greater way than we see it. So in that cost and that sacrifice, take this money into your hand. This money that has been given to you, the power that has been given to you, the one that you can have, the one that you identify with, and say, Lord, you know what? I want to come and I want to place this before you today at church. I'm given an opportunity to worship you with the very thing that man worships, the God that man worships. I take at church and I say, Lord, I worship you with their God today. That's what you do. So take your money. Come on. And let's sing this. Let's sing this just before we sow. Come on. Yes, Lord. Lord, here it is, Lord, this morning, at the beginning of the week, Lord. We can come and we can worship you with our silver and our gold, with the provision that you have given us, Lord. Every week, we come to church and we take the gods of this world and we put that in a bag and we offer it to you, saying, this is not our God. This is not what we live for. We live for you. Our life is yours. Lord, this is just a remembrance of whose our life is. It's only a small token of your amazing Son, Jesus Christ, who has given to us, Lord. Lord, reveal him to us today, that our hearts burn with love for him again. Bless the offering. Bless the people, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Wow Sunday. Good morning. Happy people. I would like to welcome our dearest friends, coaches, they are so much more than all of that. They've been with us from almost the beginning, and they're very special. Peter and Judy Fleming. I think they are the reason why we take the offering so passionately. Yeah? Because there was a time we used to sit on the offering box and nobody could give anything. Until they actually came and said, God has told us for you that it's time that you open up this box and receive from the people. And so it was a tremendous, tremendous journey and beginning with this lot. Thank you. Just a reminder, everybody, Tuesdays, who was here for that Tuesday, for the launch of the discipleship? Yeah, so it's the service teams, where certain days there are different levels of entry. And so this current one, I think, will continue to be for service teams, coaches, leadership, and board. So please make sure you're there this Tuesday. The first session was really, really good, very awesome, and we are going to actually maybe continue along those same lines. So I might change the calendar up a little bit, yeah? So that's that. Can we have, there's a short video I want you to watch. This is one of the passion projects, right, that the teams had come up with. I think Isaru, Sanjeeva, Natash, they're all spearheading this. Simon had the idea, and now everybody else is working at it. So I just want to show you, this is our first competition we're going to be having.
We, the Warehouse Project and WOW1, are thrilled to announce Sri Lanka's first calisthenics battle of this caliber, happening on the 1st of Feb at CrossFit Ceylon, Colombo 2. This all-island event is going to showcase the most incredible athletic talent, with cash prizes and exciting giveaways for all the winners. But this isn't just about a competition, it's about community impact. As our CSR initiative, we are partnering with the Nelly Gahavatta Kids to host an empowering workshop. The long-term heart of this project is creating opportunities to keep more kids away from drug usage, giving them a positive outlet and a supportive community. We're looking for forward-thinking sponsors to join us in making this event truly unforgettable. With your support, we can not only create a platform for outstanding talent, but also drive meaningful, lasting community change. Let's collaborate to set a new benchmark for fitness empowerment and social responsibility in Sri Lanka.
So that is on the 1st of February. I wanted that played here because it takes very little to actually contribute to this and make it work, So what we thought of doing was to motivate them, to motivate the kids, what do we train for? What do we stay fit for? What do we gain from this, So we thought we would bring in the aspect of cash prizes, right? And maybe we don't know how exactly we will do it in case of the Nelly Gahavatta kids, because we'll have to plan it out and maybe do it in terms of a savings account or something like that where they can't touch it and go crazy. But for overall, for all the participants, we want to include cash prizes. So it'll come in the form of vouchers. I'm thinking like maybe 10,000 rupee vouchers, 20,000 rupee vouchers. We won't go above that for this initial one. So if you or your company has anything to offer for this, right? Whether it be, I think we're getting energy drink sponsors or, something like that that's relevant to this. If not, if you would like to just contribute some cash so that the team, Natasha, Isuru, and them can get together and think of some good vouchers to get all the winners. That will really make this competition rich. Okay, so this is the Passion Project. That's the first of its type. So if you want to support it in any way, speak to Natasha. That Natasha Fonseca. Okay? Everyone? Yes? Otherwise, we'll get you to climb the bars, and that can be a fundraising event. It's going to be really awesome. You should see these guys. They're quite awesome. I think Sanjiva is our resident calisthenics. You can tell by his, yeah. Okay, one more thing. Did you all see this? This is the 2025. It was designed by Bree Brahma, who did the last year's prophecy as well. So they put it together in a really nice calendar. I think Lishi, thanks to Lishi, she's helped us put it together and get it printed. And you can actually prophesy your months, okay, in line with the prophecy, okay? Remember, it's empowering you to prophesy and speak out your present and your future. So that's what this is. It's going to be available at cost. Lishi said it should be there next Sunday. So just make your book one. Book one because they're made to order, okay? Right. When the bandies were playing that song, what is it? How He Loves Me. Okay, How He Loves Me, it really took me back because I don't know if you guys remember, because I like earmark memories, I think we all do, through song. And this was like an unforgettable worship song session that we had. Pasty said, you really need to meet this crew, and he introduced us to John and Kelsey Bestovich. And at that time, there was a different, they were in a different church, and they were leading and heading the worship, and they brought the whole worship team down, okay? So at that time, we were the young kids on the block. They were the young kids on the block. So, you know, they're like, oh, Pasty's bringing some other kids down to, like, you know, show us what it's about. And then, but I remember something distinct. They were amazing worshipers. And as they were singing this song, I tell you, it's the first time I was ever touched by the Holy Spirit. I think not just me, many of us, we were touched like amazingly by the Holy Spirit. We had like such an amazing revelation of His love. And I remember for 3 days, I was struck with the spirit of joy. I couldn't walk. It looks like you're drunk. That's what it looks like. If you haven't experienced it, you've experienced alcohol. But it looks like a holy drunk, right? Where you're just thrilled with everything about life. You're in such gratitude that you can't stop laughing. And you can't stop, like, you know, it's just, you're in a different realm. 3 days of that, right? And I had to go to work, and I had a meeting, I remember, in the boardroom, and I had to call, I think, Jackie or Tammy or somebody, and I said, you guys need to come and get me out of here now. Like, I will lose this deal with the company if they see me like this, because nobody would understand. And so I was like, Lord, touch us once again like that. And I was trying to remember the posture that might have facilitated such a thing, if at all we can, it's all grace. And I remember the posture was, I'm ready to receive. And there is more. So there is more that I will receive from outside of me. Remember? Extranos, alien righteousness. From outside of me, there's more that I can receive. And I'm hungry for more. I just want to receive. And now, I'm very, very honored to say, actually we must say congratulations to WOWLife Church Global. They celebrated 10 years. 10 years. Our dear friends John and Kelsey Bestovich have built this amazing community, WOWLife Church, since then, and we are honored to have them under our covering, but most of all, we're honored to have them by our side as our friends and partners in Kingdom. Yeah, so the journey continues. I just want to do a quick, short positive theology because I don't want it to take too long. We've taken a lot of time in the opening. This is just in line with, okay, so it's in line with, there were some questions that were asked on Tuesday, and we were talking of what does evangelism look like in this modern era, okay? It's not about going and converting people and grabbing them from other religions, and that's not what it's about. And we went a little bit into that. And then there was the question of, okay, so what about Christians? What about Christians? Are all Christians the same? do all Christians not need Jesus because they already have Jesus? So I thought this was a very appropriate one. It's called, what is it called? Christianity under judgment? What do we call it? Judgment upon Christianity. And I think you spelled Christianity. Okay, that's fine. Next, yeah, Christianity. Okay, so next slide. So this is, okay, thank you guys. Right, so this is a guy called, he was a Danish philosopher, theologian. A lot of his philosophy was on theology. Really awesome thinker. He, I think, came up with existentialism. So basically, very influenced by Luther, but also thereafter you will hear of Dietrich Bonhoeffer that Kirby keeps talking about in line with discipleship. He was very influenced by him, okay? So really cool guy, and he was really, his context was the Lutheran Danish church, okay, evangelical church, and he was like, you know, what has happened to this church? And I remember, I think the time was 19th century, so it's World War I. We're talking that era, and he's like, everyone's Christian, but what's the point? Okay, it's like, are they, okay, go to the next slide. Okay, so it was like, everyone is just believing something for the sake of my community believes it, my family believes it, my birth certificate says it, my school requires it, right? It's called culture Christianity. And it was because it was just the thing to be. And there was no deep understanding of the why. And so he brought in the individual, he stressed on the individual personal experience. Next. So he described this thing of aesthetic versus ethical and aesthetic, and the stages of life. And so this means that just because you're living a moral life, just because it looks all kosher on the outside, just because you're doing all the right things, the charity, the church going, the serving, whatever it is, there is a difference between that and a life, a true, genuine life of faith. So objective truth, it doesn't, just because there's like a mass doctrine of something, it means nothing unless you have a personal revelation. Next. Okay, so he stressed that there's so much Christianity, but no living Christ. Is that the quote? Guys, what's next? Okay, so this is really good. This is what I want you all to see, okay? Because, you know, you hear a lot of establishments really making their statements about who is in, who is out, right? What is a heresy? Who is a heretic? Who are the true Jesus believers and who are not? But Soren brought it in beautifully because he exposed the church for being far more dangerous than all of this, okay? So the established church is far more dangerous to Christianity than any heresy or schism. We play at Christianity, we use all the Orthodox Christian terminology, but everything without character. Yes, we are simply not fit to shape a heresy or a schism. There is something frightful in the fact that the most dangerous thing of all is playing at Christianity. And this is never included in the list of heresies and schisms. Okay, so he's really exposing something in the church. I mean, World War I has just, I think is going on or finished. All the countries that were taking part in this war, which had no meaning really, were Christian. So they were not governed by anything. There was no purpose of anything. Where was the Christianity? What was the driving force? What was their faith? Why were they doing what they're doing? Did they align it with the goals of Christ? Did they, you know, all these questions came about. So he really exposed this. And I think I'll skip the next quote because I think this is heavy enough. But what he's trying to say is that there are culture Christians today. Okay, and I think that's very relevant to even our culture here. There are culture Christians today that think, remember Luther said the worst thing that can happen is good works. Okay? We're a grace church. Good works means when you think that whatever you're doing, okay, especially when it's good, is earning you something. Okay? If you think you are defined by your works, by your morality, okay, that opposes grace. It is an enemy to grace. It is an enemy to the gospel. Because what he did for us was a free act of love. And when we receive that, that is the pure empowerment of who we are. If you think, just because you bring 3 people to church, just because you worship every Sunday, just because I'm preaching here or we're, putting out good programs, that I can now take a back seat and not depend on someone giving me something from outside, extranos. Okay? If I'm not positioning myself to receive, then I'm thinking I'm self-sufficient, justified by what I'm doing. Okay? And the worst for him, the worst for God, is not the sinner. It's the one that appears moral and holy. In the name of whatever, in the name of God, in the name of faith, and carries on that way, thinking that their works are worth more. For him, the dirty sinner, the son lying in the pigsty, is probably better off because he's coming back saying, okay, I'll come back even as a servant. But he says, no, you're my son. But the one standing there waiting with him thinking, this is all mine because I've worked for it. Why are we giving it to him after he ran into the pigsty? He's the one who we need to be worried about more. The hypocrisy, right? The hypocrisy. So that is what we want to expose today. Sunday exposures, okay? And just tell you, once again, now any of us can fall into this. Wow, we are a grace church, but we need to still be in hunger and dependence for His grace. There is so much more that we have to receive. We don't want to be stagnant. We don't want to be stuck in the infant stage, like an infant Jesus. We want to grow into the mature Jesus. Remember the Christmas message, okay? So that is the goal, to grow into maturity, in dependency on His love, His grace, His righteousness, which is pouring on us always from outside of us, okay? So are you ready now? Wow! For your amazing Sunday message. Give it up for Prophet K.
Your love got me feeling so high, got me feeling so high, got me feeling like I can change the world tonight.
Yes, come on. Sunday morning, WOWLife Church. Welcome to church. Take a seat. It's going to be awesome. We can change the world. They did start changing the world. We are busy partnering with them. Okay, so this is a series. If you are new to WOWLife Church, we are on a series from December onwards. It's called The Cost of Discipleship. The Cost of Discipleship. If you look at the Great Commission literally says that we need to baptize the ethnos, the nations. We need to go out to the nations. This was not the limited commission that you saw there. If you notice, the limited commission said, go only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Remember that was the limited commission. Then Jesus he was raised from the dead, and he was raised from the dead, he gave them a different commission. And the commission was now go beyond your own people, beyond your own ethnos, and go to others, strangers. Strangers will meet strangers, and they will share the good news and bring them into one body, one place. You see, that's a completely different commission, and we are called after that commission. Now, I'm just going to show you today, I think it's just amazing, amazing character, and his name is Peter. On this rock, I shall build my church. And I want to show you the disciple Peter, and I want to show you the character and the cost of discipleship with Peter. It's a very beautiful story when you understand Peter. Peter is what people today will say is the head of the church. Some people say he was the first pope, but he was not really. He was not the first pope. But it's just because Jesus says, on this rock I will build my church. And the word rock is the same word for Peter's name. So it's small rock. Peter means small rock. So he says, on this rock I will build my church. But it meant that just before that, there was a response that Peter actually said to Jesus, and it was, he says, who do men say I am? And he says, I believe that you are the Son of the living God. That response, from that response came this place where he says, now on this rock I shall build my church. So it's not really a lineage issue, though some people think it is. It's a revelation issue. What's the rock? That you are the Son of God. That men can't see this, but I see it and I believe it. What do you believe? Was the question to Peter. Do you believe that I am the Son of God? Do you believe I'm just a natural man walking around, just another prophet walking around? Or do you believe I'm the Son of God? And he responds. But before all that happened, before you ask this question, I want to show you Peter's posture. He's the same person. Please understand. Peter, amazing, amazing guy. Such a conflict. Because when you see Peter, at one point, he sees the revelation. He says, on this rock, I'll build my church. He says, Peter, on you, literally, on this rock, we're playing with the name. I mean, how commended and bestowed and so loved would you feel if Jesus looks at you and says, Ralph, on you, man, I need people like you. I was at a party recently, Ryan and Tammy's anniversary, and there was a couple of young men I was talking to, and one of them, I actually turned around and said, man, I want you by my side. There was a young woman as well. She was not so young, actually. She's quite old now. She was young once. That I looked at her. I've known her before. She was in this church before. I said, I want you by my side. I said, on people like you. I said, come with me. I said, on people like you, we can change this nation. You see? And what do people feel when Christ himself spoke to Peter? And he says, man, you know me. You know who I am. You see through it. You see through all the muck that others don't see. Come on, with you, I can do something great. That's what he's saying, right? Okay? And so, just 5 minutes maybe after that, what a conflict in this man's life. Because 5 minutes after that, there he was, okay, telling Jesus what to do and how he should do his ministry. Right there, you know. And he said, you know, I have to now go to the cross. And he said, no, Lord, it will not be. No, I will stand by you. I'll fight for you. You will not go to the cross. On my dead body, he says. And he looks at Peter and he says, get thee behind me, Satan. You see, the same man, 5 minutes apart. It's a famous story, you know. And you can see that the struggle in every single person. One moment, you are the chosen one, the one who's spreading the gospel. Next moment, you think that maybe by your strength and your will and by your power, you can protect the gospel. And you lost grace in one moment of time because of your righteous work and your righteous thoughts. You see? So Peter had tremendous conflict like this. Constantly, there is the beautiful, I don't want to use too much of a scientific word, but beautiful superpositioning, it's called superpositioning of humanity with godliness. We are called at one point to be both all the time. We are the frail sinner, but also the divine son. We don't lose any part of it. I mean, you look at the gospel and look at the people in the gospel, and you look at people like Peter, where on that rock he built his church. On him, right there, he's a frail, broken man immediately. And the gospel accounts it perfectly for us to know it. You're not supposed to be perfect. The very person that tells the Lord, tells him, I see you, I know you, I feel you, I recognize you, is the same person that is called the devil 5 minutes after that. And that's so it relates and connects to us to understand on that rock he built his church. That's the rock he built his church on. On the one he called 5 minutes later, he looked and said, like, what devilish madness are you getting yourself into? But previously, he was the guy. And it's very interesting to see Peter's life because I'll just show it to you. In the beginning, Peter was probably one of the first people he called, Andrew and Peter, okay? And so he's the one who says, he starts off this amazing word. He says, follow me, okay? Akaloteo me means follow me, come after me. And those beautiful words of discipleship was actually spoken to Peter. And let me show it to you in, I think it was in, Luke 5. It was Luke 5. Let me go there. This is just impromptu, just taking you there. The first encounter with Peter, Luke 5, gives a bit of detail. Okay, I'm going to just show you this. This is going to, say this with me. Say, this is going to end well. Yeah, good. Yeah, this is going to end well. Okay, this is, yeah. It's going to end well. And I'm talking about you, okay? It's going to end well for you. Don't worry, okay? Okay? You can say that. This is going to end well. It's going to end well for Peter. But it's going to end well for us, okay? So Luke 5 says this. And I love this posture because this guy has an amazing miracle. Jesus comes to him. And so it says it like this in verse 5. So it was as the multitude pressed about him to hear the word of God that he stood by the lake of Gethsemane and saw the boat standing by the lake. But the fishermen had gone from them and were washing their nets. Then he got into one of the boats, which was Simon's. So Simon Peter, that's the guy, okay? We're talking about Simon Peter. And asked him to put out a little from the land. So he said, okay, just go a little further and pull out a little from the land. And he sat down and he taught the multitudes from the boat. When he had stopped speaking, he said to Simon, launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch. Okay, very interesting. But Simon Peter answered and said to him, Master, we have toiled all night and caught nothing. Nevertheless, at your word, I will let down the net. I want you to see this, okay? This is really interesting because here's a guy, he's seeing into Peter, and Peter is seeing into Christ. This is one of his first encounters. And so they signaled to their partner in the other boat. Okay, where was it? Okay, Master, I've toiled all night and caught nothing. Nevertheless, at your word, I will let down the net. And when they had done this, they caught a great number of fish, and the net was breaking. So they signaled to their partners in the other boats to come and help them. There was so much of bounty, such a huge miracle. And then they came and filled both the boats so that they began to sink. This is crazy, right? This is a massive miracle. When Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees saying, "Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord." Did you see there? For he and all who were with him were astonished at the catch of fish which they had taken. And so also were James and John, and sons of Zebedee, and were partners with Simon. And Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. From now on, you will be fishers of men." Okay, that's where that comes from. Now, that's the beginning of Peter's life. Just imagine, I see people all the time, they come to church, okay, and this happens. This very thing happens. Everything starts working out. Okay, this is the beginning of the journey, okay? Okay, this is the beginning of the journey. Keep going up, I think. So when they had brought their boats to land, they forsook all and what? They forsook all and what? Followed him. That's the cost of discipleship. The cost of discipleship is like a man finds a beautiful pearl, and then he sells all, and then he buys the field. The cost of discipleship is when the miracle happens, when the big thing happens. You came through the door looking for something. Your house was broken. Your life was broken. Your relationships were ended. You walk through the door. You're looking for something. And then this happens. What happens? The miracles happen. The signs happen. The wonders happen. God raises you up. You get the job. You get your career on the right path. Things work out. And I've seen people get proud when things work out. I've seen men, after things have worked out, they're like, "Wow, God is with me. God is with me." You see, just imagine you have a multiplication miracle, money comes, and you become a rich man. This is what happened to these guys. They were so big, their catch was so big, that they couldn't even fill their own bank accounts with it. They had to get another boat in. Okay, they've got a second account. Just check this out. Okay, I've seen people get really, really proud, and they say, "Well, God is with me. God is with me." Ezra, come on. When miracles happen to us, we know what it is like. The easiest thing to do is like, "Man, God is with me." His response is completely different. When he sees the miraculous, when he sees the abundance, he goes back to his unworthiness. It's a beautiful thing. He says, "I am not worthy of you. Go away, O Lord, because I am unworthy of you. On this rock, I shall build my church." On this rock, I'll build my church. Not on the other guy. When I remember the first time I'd gone to meet David Herzog, and I come back, and we were just in a house, and I didn't even know if it's going to work or not, but I had some like silly faith, like what Peter had, like, cast. He said, "I'm tired, we've done this," but he said, "Okay, at your word, I'll do it." And I remember Fiona asking me, like, you got David Herzog? And I'm like, I said, "I'm going to do everything that David Herzog is going to do." Okay, and I'd sewn my watch in, and Fiona was like, "But how do you know it's going to work?" Like crazy stuff, like gold in your mouth and gold dust and all that. She said, "How do you know it's going to work?" And Pastor Luke was there, who's like a real prophet, and he's like mature believer, and he was like wondering, where have I gone and what have I got, And all of them were there, and I said, "No, but I saw it happen, and God loves me. I'm going to do the same thing, and God is going to come through." And the most mind-blowing miracles happened that day. I think people got healed. Gold dust came across on the whole on people, like literally. I mean, it was quite astonishing how God moved. And I remember that day, the first thing, I remember that sense, like Peter had, like, what, God, but why me? Why are you choosing? You know me. You know what type of man I am. You know my mind. You know my heart. Man, you see me, God, more than most people see me. You know me even better than Fiona knows me. You know me. You see me. How are you using me? So Peter says, "Go away from me." You see? And it's completely different to the new church today, where their miracles define them. Their miracles define them. They make someone walk from a wheelchair, and then that defines them. It makes them the great prophet or a great man of God because they've got someone to walk. And they boast of it, like they've done it out of their own strength. We've had amazing miracles. I'll tell you miracles that you can't even believe in. Like people find it hard to believe in the miracles that we had. But Peter's response was beautiful. Go away from me, Lord. What am I doing with you? What am I doing with you? The conflict, the struggle. When Jacob struggles with God, it's a struggle. And don't forget, the struggle is important. Never do we stop struggling. You were named a prince because of your struggle. Your reasoning, you constantly struggle with God because you know your humanity more than anything else. On that rock God can build his church on a man who knows that he is the Son of God. And by grace and mercy, I've been given some grace to walk in that partnership. Amazing, amazing guy. And so he says, no, from now on you will be not just catching fish, Peter. On that type of person, I'll tell you, you will fish with men. You will fish with men. It's so nice to be at social gatherings and to see your faces. So your faces. Some of you had maybe more than one drink or 2 drinks, or maybe 5 drinks or 10 drinks. It's nice. It's nice. That's where I thrive. I thrive in a nightclub. I thrive with normal people. I don't do so well at church, please. Yeah. I'm not well suited for a bishop's position or a pastor's position. I'm suited out there. God has called us here, so we are here. You see, and it's so good for me because it's my easiest way to get the gospel out. With a drink in my hand, with a drink in your hand. When do we forget? When do we deny Christ? When is it too weak to be able to talk about God? When are we worthy enough to talk about God? Think about Peter and what type of guy he was, and I'll tell you something about evangelizing and about the cost of discipleship. When do we forget who Jesus is in our life? It was very interesting because some of you came up to me and say, prophet, pastor, K, or whatever it is. I don't like you calling me prophet outside the church. Prophet is for inside the church. You can call me K outside the church. Some of you remembered that. I said, K, I want to tell you, I had a couple of drinks. I never been high in front of you before. I appreciate that. You see, you coming forward and telling me, talking to me. It makes you human. It makes me see you. There's no hiding. It means that you know God. It means you live in a grace church. It means that you know you're loved. I'm not asking you to be drunk. I'm not asking you to constantly go out and get high. But I'm telling you that your humanity is so important to God. Peter's humanity is what Jesus saw it and he said, this man is powerful. He's a rock. He can't be moved. Because he knows who he is, a man who knows his identity. That without Christ, there is nothing for him. That without the Spirit, there is no righteousness. That's the type of discipleship that we're calling. That's the type of discipleship that we were called to. We were not called to any type of discipleship. We were called to a church that is meant for broken people. Meant for people who make mistakes. Meant for people who are not mended. Jesus says that, the doctors, who needs a doctor? He says only the sick need a doctor. He said, but if you're mended, you don't need this church. It's like Fiona said, you can be self-righteous and you can go to a different place. We want to make sure that discipleship is coming at the cost of who you are. When you represent yourself to God, to man, that you are who you are. You're not some self-righteous person who thinks that you can make it on your own. You're not trying to save yourself. You need a savior. You're a sinner saved by grace. This is what discipleship truly is. When you can represent yourself out there at any time and still not be ashamed. And still not be ashamed. It's very interesting. You look at Peter's life. You see it in the denial in John 18. You turn with me there. Peter now is in the Garden of Gethsemane. John 18. Very interesting. And you can see this guy is like, he's a funny guy because I love guys like this. Because he's the same guy who, when they came to get Jesus and they'd come with a whole group with probably knives and swords and all the best weapons that they had, he was the one guy, this guy was armed. He was actually armed. He actually had something with him. He was ready for a fight, Peter. Yeah? That's why I said he was a real man. He wasn't his goody two-shoes. When he walked around with Jesus, he was armed. And he would actually say, well, I need to protect you. That was Peter. I like that guy. Yeah? He was a real man. And he was ready for a good fight. And he was the guy, when they took Jesus, he was one of the only guys, which I'm really embarrassed for Jesus to say it, really. I'll have a little more than him who will fight for me. Actually, really. There's one guy. Okay? Well done, Peter. And he pulled out his sword and he cut this guy's ear off. What would you do? I'm asking the question. What would you do? That sounds like me. I would have been that one guy. Yeah. And then I've got a whole lot of others as well. But what would you do? That's the guy he's going to build his church on, man. Priyantha, you know this story. That's the guy he builds a church on. He brings the church on that type of people. Not on saints. He builds a church on them. And he took a sword and he cut this guy's ear off. And this is, look at him. Now, please, I'm not proposing violence, okay? Honestly, I can't remember the last time I felt like doing something like that. Okay? I'm redeemed and saved, but it's the life I came from. But God has changed me. But even at that time with Jesus preaching, Jesus himself preaching for 3 years, this man couldn't resist pulling out a sword. He still couldn't. 3 years. I mean, I preached for 10 years, and I can get the job done. Honestly. And I have people who are like, yeah, okay, we sheath a sword. Okay? But out of Jesus preaching for 3 years, Jesus himself, this man could not practice what was preached. You know, he took out a sword and cut it. I'm going to read it to you, Luke 18. Where is it? Sorry, John 18. It's here. Listen carefully. The chief priest, where is it? In verse 4. And the Pharisees came with their lanterns, torches, and what? Weapons. You see there? Man. Jesus, therefore, knowing all things that would come upon him, went forward and said to them, whom are you seeking? Then answered him, Jesus of Nazareth. Okay, this is really cool. So they come, Jesus asked the question, who are you seeking? And this is the amazing thing. Jesus said to them, in verse 6, now when he had said to them, I am, they drew back and fell to the ground. This is really cool, okay? Everyone, you need to understand, Jesus wasn't murdered. I keep saying this to people. Jesus gave his life. When Pontius Pilate said, I have the power of life and death over you, Jesus turns around and tells him, nothing can be done to me unless it was given to you by heaven. Jesus was not murdered. He wasn't homicide. He gave up his life. This is a typical example of it. Do you see the italics of the he? I am he. You see the italics of the he? That means it's not there in the original text. So when they came and they said, we're looking for Jesus of Nazareth, he turns around and he says the name of God. I am. It's Yod-He, Waw-He. I am. I can be thundered across. There would have been 500 of them. Now when he has said to them, I am, they drew back and fell to the ground. Did anyone tell you that story? Did Mel Gibson show that in the Passion of Christ? I love Passion of Christ. But he should have shown that. It wasn't a murder. But he got up. He was there. He got up. He said, I am. They all fell. 500 people fell. You're talking of where do you get slain in the spirit? And you get people doing all these things. 1 or 2 people fall. 500 fell. One word. And they went bang. All their weapons, all their stuff, everything fell. At that time, Peter, if he had a little more friends, would have gone and finished it off. One guy can do only one thing. Okay? Then Jesus of Nazareth, then Jesus answered, I've told you that I am. Therefore, if you seek me, let these go their way. And he said, let them go. I'll come. He gives himself. He said, come on. Get up, get up. Get up and handcuff me. Come on. Okay? You see the power. And then Simon Peter having a what? Sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. So Jesus said to Peter, put your sword in sheath. Shall I not drink the cup which my Father has given me? Okay? But you see, Peter moved into action. He was a man of action. He did what he believed was right in his conscience. God loved him for that. What he did probably was wrong, but God loved that he did what he thought was right in his conscience. You see? Isn't it awesome? Okay? Now, here's the interesting thing. I want you to see this. Okay? This is the most amazing thing. A guy who was ready to fight, a guy who was ready to kill for the Lord. Jesus had told him at one point when he was having the, what they call the Last Supper. At that point, he had said, someone will betray me. And he was like, who will betray me? And then he goes on to say, he says, Peter, when the cock crows, by the third time, you will betray me. Now, for that, Peter was like, he couldn't believe it. Okay? Here's the guy, and so obviously when someone tells you that, I always tell, there was a friend of mine, he's not here at church anyway, but I always say, I'll talk about him anyways. He comes to me and he's fighting a big court case. And he might end up with a couple of, maybe $1 billion even with that case. And so I tell him always, because we're all friends, and I say, once you get this $1 billion, I will never see your face again. I said that. He's like, no, Kirby, trust me. You know me. You know me. I'm going to be there. You've been there for me when I had nothing. I'm going to be there. I said, man, I know how these things work. Okay, don't worry. It's no big deal. Okay, and Peter now, and so every time he sees me now, he reminds me. He says, you see, when I get, I hope you're praying for me. You see, when I get it, I promise you. You see my heart, will you? Okay, and Peter would have been like that because Jesus had already told him, you're going to deny me. So I'm sure that's why maybe he pulled the sword out, because he's like, no, the denial could be now. It could be now. And so with his own strength and his own will, because Jesus had told him, remember, he's the guy who said, I have to go to the cross. And he said, no, not on my dead body. I won't let you go. I will die first, he said. And so he's now keeping to the word because he has heard Jesus had told him something. He's convicted his heart deeply. And now even in the face of war, he's ready to stand up for Jesus because he's saying, Jesus, I won't deny you. I'm that guy. You said I would, but I will prove you wrong. Out of my own strength and my own will. Yeah? And so, there you go. Here he is. Jesus has been arrested right now. And when he was arrested, this is good, beautiful to see this. In verse 15, Jesus was arrested. Now he's taken. And Simon Peter followed Jesus. He's there. So did another disciple. Now that disciple was known to the high priest and went with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest. So obviously, John, who's writing, is this other disciple. I like the way John writes his notes when he's writing the book of John. He actually, he brings Peter up a lot. And this is so strange that John brings Peter up because John writes, and you'll see it, maybe I'll read it to you. He actually writes, John, the disciple that Jesus loved. That's how John remembers himself. It's me, John, who's writing this, the disciple that Jesus loved. And then this guy, Peter. He goes on like, there's all this conflict, right? So he said, now he says, and so there's another disciple, he's obviously talking about himself, okay? So there's another disciple also who when I saw this guy, Peter, okay, this guy who said, I'm going to stand by you, and the guy who pulled the sword and cut the ear, he's like, more peaceful than that. I prayed for Jesus while they were being arrested, okay? I don't go there, I'll have a prayer vigil, and I'll put a prayer chain up and all that. I won't do anything, but my prayers are powerful. This is that guy, okay? Because Jesus loves me, okay? And I follow after Jesus. So he's writing like a little gossip, but he's writing about now Peter. Like, nice, said the big words, cut the ear. Go, Badu. He's asking, what happened, okay? So then he says, so Peter stood at the door. So he said, the other guy, he knew the high priest. John knew the high priest, okay? And the other guy who didn't know, this guy was a bit rough and tough guy, so he didn't know high priest, and he didn't come to church, and he doesn't know pastors, and he doesn't relate with them, and all that kind of stuff. That guy stood at the door. Then the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, went out and spoke to her who kept the door and brought Peter in. He said, okay, now they're trying Jesus, so they say, come on, and brings Peter in, okay? Then the servant girl who kept the door said to Peter, you are not also one of these man's disciples, are you? And he asked the question, and remember what we are teaching is the cost of discipleship. And the question that will come to you out there is this very question. Are you a disciple? They didn't ask, hey, did you know Jesus? They didn't ask, I think you're also friends with Jesus. The question that is a threat to anyone is discipleship. He says, but you are also one of these guys' disciples. Disciples is really interesting because I was speaking to that lady I was telling you about, and the one thing that was going here, up and down, up and down, up and down, she was telling me how she's a free spirit and how she is doing the same thing that I'm doing. And that she's also bringing people to Jesus, just like I'm bringing people to Jesus. And this was a discussion that I was having, and I was like, yeah, but your will, you're doing it out of your own will. Are you a disciple? A disciple is very different. A disciple is a person who takes his will and he submits his will completely to the church. From that time, take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, today. Take my will. It's yours now. And there's a big difference between a person who just goes to church on a Sunday, and there is a big difference between a person who submitted his will to the church and said, Lord, my will is yours. Use me so that I'll be fishers of men. Use me to tend your sheep. Use me to feed your sheep. It's a completely different thing. It's not just bringing people to Jesus, but are you involved in the feeding of the sheep? Are you involved in the tending of the sheep? Are you involved with the church? Or it's just a Sunday morning thing? And this is what was asked by this person. Are you disciplined under Jesus? The word disciple is disciplined under Jesus. Because that's the frightening thing. A guy at the back won't frighten anyone. Sorry, guys at the back, sorry. I don't mean that, okay? It's just metaphorical, okay? All right? It's like, it doesn't... We're looking for committed people. Discipleship is what matters. Discipleship means that, man, you can be then just like him. You can then change the world. A disciple, not just someone who comes, and that's why we limited Tuesday to those who want to be disciple, and I beg of all of you, come on Tuesday. Don't allow only the leaders to come on Tuesday. But for that, you might have to go to Melissa and say, I want to keep the door. I will come early, half an hour, and I'll be at the door. I'll welcome people. What do you want to do with the media team? This is what I can do. What do you want to do with, I can sing, I can do, a disciple is something else. A disciple is the one who's involved. This was the accusation. The accusation is, are you a disciple? Here's a man who's ready to commit violence. I'm going to tell you something very serious. A man who's able to go to war. Do you know that I have friends? I have friends up to now in this church and outside this church who die for me. Mark always says this. He says, is it better for someone to die for you or for someone to kill for you? What do you think is better? No. No. It's better for, if you want real strength, I want people who will not only die for me, but will always keep, come on. Come on, think about it. What would you like? What do you want in loyalty? But with all that, and this is what I tell powerful people, with their will, because this can die for him, and he can kill for him. So he's really so strong. He's such a powerful guy, a powerful man. But man, that's the very one that when you're questioned with discipleship, you have no courage. Because you're so strong, you got your own will, and he had done everything. Up to now, he had done everything that will please Jesus. And Jesus' words, one day you will fail me, one day you'll betray me 3 times, one day you will do it. He was so sure that he's not going to betray Jesus because he could die for him and he could kill for him. He was ready for anything. He had proved it just 10 minutes ago in the garden. But when they asked, aren't you a disciple? What does that mean? Are you ready to put down your will for this man? That's a completely thing. Because dying for you and killing for you can still be your own will. Do you understand that? But are you a disciple? And when he asked, are you a disciple? That's when Simon said, he said, are you also not? He says, I am not. Many people. That's why I said, I have people who will kill for me as well. Enough. Trust me. People who go to prison for me. People who will kill for me. We have all that. But will they be a disciple? No chance. No chance. No chance. Because that's where their will and who they are is threatened. Oh, no, but I want to be a free spirit. I want to be a free spirit. No, but are you ready to submit to me? Are you ready to submit to the church? Are you ready to take your will? The only thing that God is asking from a man is not your silver, not your gold, not your money, not anything. He's given man a will that is autonomous, that is a free agent. But can you take that will and just submit it to the church? That's more powerful than dying or killing. He says, he's asking for your will. So the question when Simon actually failed Jesus was the time when he said, I am not a disciple. I'm just a believer. I'm just a friend. I just know him. WOWLife Church is, I know them. This discipleship is key. It means that your will has been given to God. That's the one that challenges the strongest and the most courageous. You see? And so, he says, I'm not. Now the servants and officers who had made fire of coals stood there, for it was cold, and they warmed themselves. And Peter stood with them and warmed himself. And the high priest then asked Jesus about his disciples and his doctrine. And then Jesus, this is the whole question. I won't go through this today, but verse 22. When he had said these things, the officer stood by Jesus, struck him by the palm of his hand, saying, do you answer the high priest like that? Jesus answered, if I have spoken evil, bear witness of the evil. But if I have spoken good, why do you strike me? Then Annas sent him to bound the Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas the high priest. Now Simon Peter stood here again and warmed himself therefore and said to him, you are not alone. Therefore they said to him, you are not also one of his disciples, are you? He denied and said, I am not. One of the servants of the high priest, this is very interesting, and this is the last one. This is amazing. One of the servants of the high priest, now this is the second time. Once, twice, right? This last third time is quite interesting, okay? One of the servants of the high priest, a relative of those whose ear Peter had cut off. Remember the guy? Yeah? This is amazing because by now the news is gone. Okay? By now, they realized that Peter is the one who had cut this guy's ear off. Okay? So by that time, Peter is now vilified and made a criminal. Literally a violent and aggressive man. And deep in that sin, they recognize him. And this is the beauty of it. The third denial probably is the best denial. Okay? When I say best denial, it's the worst but the best for you to learn. Okay? This was probably the best denial because this is identifying him for who he is. The wretched man that he was. That's the beauty of this one. And this one, because he was there, he said, hey, aren't you that guy? Aren't you that, you come here so pious, you just come into the temple of God, you come into church. Aren't you that guy, that violent, aggressive guy? Aren't you that guy that addict, that guy who is useless? Aren't you that guy who cheated on his wife and or your husband? Aren't you that guy? It's pointing out at the very weakness and saying, you are that guy. Come on, you are that guy. And the word they use for Jesus is Galilean. Galilean literally means like you are like the scum of the earth, like you are uneducated fool. You see, you are also with these uneducated people. You are one of them. And this is beautiful because this one, he says, did I not see you in the garden with him? Because he had seen now the ear being cut off. Okay? Then Peter denied again. You see? And immediately the rooster crowed. You see? That is beautiful because this denial was in the midst of his sin. And that's why I said, when people see you for who you really are, the denial comes louder. You see, when people see you, he said, aren't you that guy? You're like, what are you talking about? You're coming to save this rogue and this thief. You are one of them. You are a charlatan, a rogue, a thief. You're not a holy man. You can't even be in this temple. One of your friends got you in, right? What are you doing here? You see, you are not a righteous man. In that, the denial becomes greater. That's the time the cock crowed. That's the time people don't come to church. That's when we deny Jesus. Denying Jesus is not publicly denying Jesus. It's when you realize who you are and people see you as who you are, and then you say, I can't come to church any longer. I don't want to follow God any longer. I don't think this is working out. I'm not made for this. I'm not made for this. And many people, as they grow in God, and the call becomes greater and greater and greater, and the responsibility becomes greater and greater and greater, they look back at their self-identity and their unworthiness, and then they say, you know what? Maybe this is not for me. And one of the discussions we were having was the fact, like, it's too much, Kirby. It's too much. What you all are doing is too much. Like, we want to just go out to church on a Sunday and then come home. What is the discipleship stuff? It's too much for us. Why can't we just preach a message and we believe in Jesus and light a candle and everything will be okay? Why do we need to do anything more? That's the issue. He said, because it's not us. Look at me. Look at who I am. And Jesus says, that's exactly the person I need. This is not the time to deny Jesus in your weakness. In your weakness is when you accept him. I've told people this. I've said the easiest way for me, I mean, when I had nothing, when I had broken, I had no money, and when honestly, Fiona and I were eating only Maggi noodles at night, we lost all our companies, and we didn't have anything. Our cars were taken from us, and we lost nearly over 150 million rupees because of a tea deal, and our cars were taken from us. It was a Gallant, what is that, the one that looks like, what is it? The one that looked like the shark. It was really beautiful. Yeah, what is it called? Yeah, it's Gallant. Yeah, it was called a Gallant. Yeah. And I remember when the car was taken from us, from the road. But still, in the evening, I would tell people of Jesus. I'm not ashamed. I wasn't ashamed that my car was taken. I'm not waiting for a miracle to happen so that I can tell people of the Lord. When does the denial happen? When people say they come to church, I'm waiting to give a testimony. I'm waiting till the miracle to my family and my friends to know Jesus, because when they see that my life is good, I'm going to tell people of Jesus. No! It's the same thing that Peter is doing. You deny him because you're miserable. And you deny him because you are unworthy of yourself. And so we deny him because we want something to show. And that's the third denial. The denial is when people see us for who we are. Maybe you're not fully perfect. None of us here are perfect. We come to church 10 years, 5 years, 20 years. I have priests who are not perfect. I'm not perfect. But when do we say no to Jesus? When do we say, well, we are not in that position to be able to explain Jesus to someone else? And that's what I'm saying. Wherever you are, I mean, at this place I was talking, wherever I go, if I have an opportunity, I don't force myself. I'll talk about Jesus. If I see some guy who comes and talks to me and says, hey, are you a part of WOW? He says, yes, of course I'm a part of WOW. Let me tell you about why I'm a part of WOW. You see, there is no denial. Don't they see me in my humanity? That's when you talk about Jesus. You don't have to be so righteous and holy for you to talk about Jesus. They need to see you in your humanity. That's why I said I like to talk to Jesus with a drink in my hand. Because they see me in my humanity. They see me in exactly who I am. More people are won when people see who you are. Not people seeing some self-righteous guy who can do miracles. No, even when the miracle happened, Peter said, wretched man that I am, get away from me. With all the miracles we have, we don't lose your humanity. Because in your humanity, more people come to Jesus. More people will come. More people will come. This is Peter's chance of saying, you know what? That's me. That's me. That's me. That's right. I'm the one who cut. I'm sorry. This is Peter's chance to rise to the occasion and say, that was me. I'm sorry. I'm only human. He was my best friend. I got angry. That was Peter's chance. But as Jesus prophesied, the denial happened, but it happened because they saw into him and he identified with his flesh, embarrassed, shamed of who he was. But when he was with Jesus, Jesus was awesome. Jesus saw him in his weakness. Did you think Jesus didn't see? Jesus saw before this woman asked questions, and she knew with her friends when she asked the question that he's going to get embarrassed. She knew that he's going to deny him. And before she set him up, Jesus saw this man fail. Jesus told him, you will fail me. But still, he said, you are the rock I'll build my church on. Jesus was no longer around at that point of time. At that time, Peter forgot what Jesus thought of him. Jesus thinks of you and me like that, my friend. He looks at you and me, and he knows exactly the times we've denied him. He knows exactly who we are. He knows exactly what kind of mess we are in. But he still says, hey, rise to the occasion. I believe in you. I will build my church on you. You are the only one who can talk to your family. You're the only one who can talk to your friends. You're the only one that I believe in. You're the one that I'm choosing for this very mission today. That's what Jesus thinks of you and me. Now, amazingly, he denies him. And the last bit, just hold on to this. Sorry if I've taken too long. We're just closing up now. Last bit. Very, very cool. We'll go into the end, which is John maybe 21. But just before that, if I can take you into one verse in Mark, because I think it was in Mark. Oh God, I hope. Okay. We're looking for, I need to show you this, okay, because it just came into my mind. I must show this to you. I think it's in Mark 16. Yeah, it's in Mark 16. Yeah, turn to Mark 16. This is really interesting, okay? When the angel, when finally he denies Jesus, Jesus is crucified, and now they go on the third day, Mark 16, they go on the third day, and the angel is telling Mary Magdalene and the others, find that verse somewhere, it's in Mark 16 somewhere. The angel is telling them about Jesus who has been risen. Jesus now is risen from the dead, and I mean, they're amazed because there was the body was it was wrapped up, and the body wasn't there anymore, and this clothing was just wrapped up, and they were amazed, and there was an angel there. And the amazing thing about Jesus and about the individual call, as much as the collective call, God calls all people, but he's very specifically interested in the weak people, in the ones that no one else believed in. By now, every disciple is talking about this thing, okay? Please understand it. This was prophesied. Just understand how bad this is. It was prophesied. Imagine we were a group, and it was prophesied. One was prophesied, you will betray me. One guy had already betrayed him and killed himself, Judas. So there was not only one person who betrayed him, there were two people who betrayed him. And one was Peter. And people forget that. Okay, yes, Judas, of course, did something terrible. But Peter himself denied him. And now this is going around, and he says, yeah, Peter, he pulled a sword out. You saw, no? We see these guys now all talk. All talk. You saw, no? He tried something that also, you saw, okay, he only cut a year off. All this is going on. But he denied Jesus. I was there. John himself might be saying, but he denied Jesus. He actually denied Jesus. And now he is the outsider. And this is the most amazing thing. This is amazing because that's why I have hope in everyone. I have hope in everyone because the worst of the worst can change. I've seen it happen. It happened to me. And here it is, the same guy who now denied Jesus because of a social incrimination, because of a social penalty. I'll die for you, I'll kill for you, but socially, I don't know whether I can do it. There are people like that. I have people who will die for me, but socially, to stand, man, it's harder. It's harder. I promise you it's harder. It's harder. It's easy to fight it because it's your own will. But to show that you're submitted socially, that's hard. You see? And so, Jesus, when the angel came, where is it? It is 16:7? Yeah? Yeah, Mark 16:7. Is Mark where? Yeah, this is the one here. Look at this. Yeah, verse 6. But he said to them, the angels came, Mary came, the women came into the tomb. But he said to them, do not be alarmed. This is the angel saying, listen carefully. This is a message given by the angel. Look at this. He says, you seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. And the angel says, he is risen. He is not here. See the place where you laid him. Now it's empty, right? But now, go tell his disciples. You see? Those guys, tell all the disciples. And then he says, and specifically, go and tell Peter. That is amazing. Like, why was it in Jesus' mind? Because he's the one who had betrayed him. Everyone hasn't betrayed him. But the one, oh man, this is so cool. The one who let him down. The one who actually betrayed him. He says, go and tell all the other boys, but also go and tell Peter. You see, very specifically, calling to the ones who betrayed him. I remember the time we had this is a real problem. This is a real story, huh? This is a real story. We still have a land in Embly-Pittier, and this land in Embly-Pittier was somehow my parents, we were not spreading the gospel there, we were just having it as a farm. But anyway, people heard that mom and dad believed in Jesus and the whole thing, and by the time the Buddhist priests had come there, and the people had taken over the property, and we were not allowed to access the property. And at that point of time, I remember I had to go there to now speak to the Buddhist priests and all these people. They said, you are building a church. I said, no, we're not building a church. We had told them already, but they're now taken over the land, and we didn't have access to our own land. So I remember that time, it was really, it's a strange thing. You can preach the gospel. And then I was thinking, now when I go there, I'm not building a church. I'm not building a church. So if I'm not building a church, then I need to be able to tell them I'm not building a church, but I need to explain that I'm still a pastor. Yeah? How does this happen? And it's so easy because the people who had called to sort this problem out already were very strong Buddhists, and they were very powerful people, and now this problem is going to be sorted out for me. But I said, I don't want to go there. And they said, look, okay, go and just say, right, that you're not building a church here, and that would do it. But don't mention this. Don't mention anything else. Don't mention anything else. And go and explain how you work with the temple and stuff like this. But don't mention anything else. I remember that. And I went there, and all of them were there. And I started off. They were filming. I remember they were filming, and they started off like, so what are you all doing here? Who are you? I said, well, my parents are believers, and they're Christians, and this is not set up for a church. And then I started talking. And the temptation to walk away, because everything got sorted out, I said, look, I work with temples, I meditate with Buddhist priests. In fact, I said, I love meditation and stuff like that. I said, this is the last place I'll do a church here. In fact, I would come here and meditate, but I won't. And they were ready to go. The Buddhist priests actually got up and left. I was like, he's done. These guys are good. I could have just picked myself up and walked out. The job is done. But that temptation is a funny temptation to say you're a disciple of Jesus. You see? But these guys won't know me. They don't watch YouTube or anything like that. They're out in the open there. But I said, hold on. But I want to tell you that I am a disciple of Jesus Christ. I follow him. I love him. I won't do a church here. But I love Jesus with all my life. And I'm here representing what I believe. But I will not do a church here. That's my promise. But the temptation was so strong for me to deny him at that moment of time. Now, I'm not saying that all of you have to go and preach the gospel. I'm a pastor. It would have been wrong for me to walk out there. You don't have to do that. But when questions come to you, when you're out there, you can look like a church-going person. It's so nice to look like everyone goes to church every day. But to be a disciple, man, that's a completely different thing. You'll be looked at as a fanatic. You'll be looked like as a radical. You'll be looked like as a person who they might not want to hang out with. But I can tell you this. Everything after that has to be supernatural. The first thing is discipleship. That's what Jesus is calling you to. Be a disciple. And if you're a disciple, you'll behave and you'll act like something. The opportunity you have to explain to someone about Jesus, even in the midst of your sin, even in the midst of your brokenness, even in the midst of just you being known for who you are, that's the time you speak about Jesus. You don't wait till your life is perfect. You don't wait till things work out. You declare Jesus, and you confess who he is without shame. There are people who are not Christians who don't deny what we do here. Even at this very place, but there was people who are not Christians. But when they say, what does Kirby do? What does WOWLife Church do? They say it's one of the best places that you can send people to. There are people who are not Christians, come on, yes, who do not deny Jesus. Who do not, my God, they have amazing work. What they do here is amazing. What about you? Come to church, who want to be a part of leadership. What about you? Where is your life? Are you a disciple or are you just another believer? Jesus now is raised from the dead. Amazing story. Jesus is seen from a boat again. Peter's on his boat. He's gone back to his wicked ways, if you want to call him. He's gone back to his life that he was before. It's in John 21, the old life, whether he was a fisherman, and you know what fishermen are like, whether he was a person who was in corporate, or whether he's a person who's a businessman, or even a drunkard, or an addict, or whatever you want to call it, he's gone back to the old. But when he sees Jesus, he actually jumps into the water, swims towards him, and meets him on the shore. At that point, Jesus meets him, and in verse 15, they have a conversation. And Jesus, who told the angel, he says, make sure that you tell Peter. Because I remember Peter. I love Peter. And many of us, when he says he builds his church, what is the rock that he's built his church on? It's on a man who denied him. Don't ever forget that. That's the beauty of it. He's on a man, he builds his church on a man who denied him. He could have built his church on John. John writes on the disciple Jesus loved. He could have built his church on John. If he built his church on John, you and I have no chance. Because it is the disciple that Jesus loved. On this guy, he builds his church. 3 times. Denied him 3 times. I've denied him many times. I'm only telling you the times that I didn't deny him. I've denied him many, many times in my life. But he still chooses to build on me. If he builds on me, my friend, my God, you have a much better chance. You have a much better chance than me. So when you're eating breakfast, these are raise Christ. Jesus said to Simon, Peter, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me more than these? He's giving him a chance of redemption. He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, listen carefully what discipleship is. He denied him in discipleship. He said, then feed my lambs. Not come to church and believe. Not be in the peripheries. He says, no. I want you to take the next step now. You're already a believer. You jumped off the boat and you swam to me. You jumped off the boat and swam to me. Now I want you to feed them. Get involved in this. Make sure that all this happens. Make sure that people are fed. Don't just sit at the back. Come, feed my lambs. He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, I wonder why 3 times. I wonder why 3 times. I wonder why he said 3 times again. And you look at the 3 times he denied him. You remember the 3 times he denied him? How many times have you denied him? If you denied him 10, he'll do it 10 times. If you done 10 times, he'll ask you, do you love me? 10 times. And I wondered why Simon constantly answered like this. And I honestly believe that Simon failed to answer the question he was asking. Honestly, I believe it. Because he constantly says, he's desperate. And he says, but God, you know I love you. I'm sorry I denied you, but you know me. You know I love you. And he says, then feed my lambs. And the next one again, he says, do you love me? And Peter says, no, God, you know I love you. But I still think that was the wrong answer. Because I would have answered it differently. When I first got this, feed my lambs, he said to him again, the second time, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? For the 3 times. Here's the second time. And he said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And he said to him, tend my sheep. Different to feed. Feed is different. Now tend. Will you cover them? Will you protect them? Will you make sure there's a structure for them? Will you be a part of the church? Will you tend the sheep? Will you not just come and be a believer at the back? Will you be a disciple? Will you? Because remember, he denied Jesus on discipleship, right? But he's calling him into now. He says, come on, will you be a disciple now? Come on, answer me. Simon, do you love me? Will you be a disciple to me? That's what he's asking. Then tend my sheep. Care for my sheep. Do something about my church. Do something about my church. That's what he's asking. And if I was Simon Peter, honestly, God, give me a chance. You should say today. Simon Peter failed many times. He fails now. I would answer, Lord, I will feed your sheep. I will tend your lambs. I will be a true disciple because that's where I let you down. See, that's what Jesus was looking for. He asked again for a 3rd time. Remember the time? The 3rd time was the big one. When he was caught in his sin. I'm not asking you to be a disciple because you're strong. I'm not asking you to be a disciple because you're righteous. I'm asking you to be a disciple because you are you. And God wants you just like you are. Just like you are. Nothing different. It's not a church where saying you change and then you can be a disciple. You change and then you can do something. We don't say that. We want you just as you are because what you are is beautiful and God loves you as you are. Because the 3rd time is when they saw his sin, where Peter denies him, and he says it here. He says, Simon, come on, Simon, son of Jonah. He reminds him, do you love me? And Peter was grieved because he said to him a 3rd time. You remember? He was grieved because of the 3rd time. Because the 3rd time was a tough one. Right? Do you love me? For the 3rd time. And he said, Lord, you know all things. And you know that I love you. And Jesus said again, then come on, Simon. Feed my sheep. Is he looking for Sunday morning believers? Or is he looking for something else? He wants disciples. Then feed my sheep. That's the call. Isn't it awesome? And then he says, most assuredly I say to you, when you were young, you girded yourself. It is the will. You girded yourself. And you walked wherever you wished. He said, I remember that guy. You walked wherever you wish. You didn't even allow me to go to a cross. You pulled a sword when I didn't want a sword. You're a man of power. You're a man of will. When you were young, you had a will of your own. He said, but when you get older, he says, someone else will lead you. Someone will lead you. That's maturity. He says, will you be a disciple? A disciple is when you put your will down and you trust again, man. You trust the man. You trust the man. I'm sorry if you were broken somewhere. I'm sorry if you were rejected somewhere. I'm sorry if you were controlled in another church. I'm sorry about that. But God always will cause you for someone to lead you. He said, come on, be a disciple again, Simon. Because by now you've gone back to your own life. You've got your own will. You're a free spirit again. Come on, Simon. Will you allow someone else now to lead you? Then you'll be a leader of all men. That's what God is calling you to. A submitted disciple life. Not a life that is holy and righteous. You're not called to be a saint. You're called into someone to lead you. Come on, let's sing this song. We've taken a lot of time. I won't go into miracles, signs, wonders, or prayer, but I'm asking the pastors to come up. Come on, let's pray. Let's pray. And we're going to sing this. Can we sing this hymn before you go? Can each one of us sing this hymn? And we give our life this Sunday. It's the beginning of this year, 2025. Can we make a commitment that we will be at church? Can we make a commitment today that we'll be at church? That we will come and we will submit ourselves and we will ask the church, what do you need? What do you want? I want to be a disciple. I just don't want to come. I want to be something and somebody. Even if I have to keep the door and welcome people, that's what I'll do. If I had to come and keep the chairs, we don't need people to keep chairs. But I'm saying, this is the heart of discipleship. What do I need to do? How do I feed the sheep? How do I tend the lambs, oh God? So I want you to sing this song today and make that commitment and ask someone to come and pray for you. Come up and get someone to lay hands on you and say, I've made that decision. And if that's you, I want you to talk to Mel or talk to someone, talk to the leadership and say, can you tell Kirby that I'm ready? I want him to use me. I want Kirby to use me. And then I want you to come on Tuesday. I want you to come on Tuesday. I don't want to keep you out. I want you to come on Tuesday. Tell Sal, how many people do you need? I'll be a volunteer. I'll help you. Because we need to grow this church. We need to grow a true church. Not of saints, but of sinners. And you, my friends, qualify well. Come on, let's sing. Yeah.